That sounds great. Well, awesome. Thanks, Scott. And I think I was mentioned a little bit earlier, I'm glad, thanks Harley and everybody for putting this together in the midst of all this stuff. I was very excited to be at the convention in person, and we actually had all 8 people from our team who were going to be there, and we're really excited about it. It's, for us, it's kind of where we center our year around, just because it's an opportunity to see so many ADs across the state at one time. And as a lot of you know, a little bit about Varsity Bound, that we are completely in Iowa. We're all Iowa guys, and we're doing everything in Iowa here to start this process of what we're trying to build. And so I was glad to help do this as well on Zoom here today. But so anyway, thanks for all of that. And I'm going to get started. And what I'm going to talk about today has to do with leveraging your brand in this digital world that we're in. And so there'll be some things that are related to Varsity Bound, but more I'm trying to provide just some insight on some things from my view of living in the digital world in high school literally every single day. It's all I do every day. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I'm looking all over the place at different websites. What are people doing? How are people promoting? How are fans interacting with apps? That's all I do. That's the swim lane I'm in every single day. And so I'm just going to share a few things that I think are interesting that are going on, but I think that can help you continue to build a following in the right places and turn that following into fundraising opportunities for your program. Because I think we're in also a unique time for high school sports like never before, where you can build a following and make more money off that versus the media and such, as we've become accustomed to for years. And let me see here. Speaking of media, so I graduated exactly 20 years ago. This is what I was my class president and had to cancel our class reunion. I was a Ballard grad, and you know, actually digging through some things during this quarantine, dug up some old articles that my mom put together for me here. And so I know I'm sure all of us either live this or as an AD, where we were newspaper clippings and collections of that was how things got told to fans, how people were made aware. And, you know, I got a couple copies of each of these clippings in like envelopes because people would mail them to our house. Just that was the way we shared and celebrated a lot of the accomplishments that student athletes had. And it was great. I mean, I don't have any complaints on it at all. But as we know, things have transitioned. And just so you are aware, I'm well-rounded. Yes, that is me playing the flute in the marching band. So I didn't play football. I was a golfer and cross country, and kept grounded by being in the marching band, and made my mom very proud about that part. So this was a life for a lot of us, whether it was our relationships with the media and covering these things, or it was ourselves as athletes. These are likely the kinds of things that we all have and remember. But in so many ways, the newspaper era over. You know, I sat in the booth at the state softball tournament this last year, and I was sitting with a bunch of media people, and everybody was a little crabby, a little cranky, because either people were getting cut from their papers, or they were downsized in some way, shape, or form, or they just weren't able to do as much as they used to. And it's tough because we need local media. We don't want that to go away, and some of them are reinventing themselves, but the way we rely on that for information clearly is past, or it's still transitioning. And again, we need great storytellers in our local area, but to rely on this as our source, as athletic directors, and as me, as myself, as a fan and a parent, and actively in coaching as well. How do we find stuff, and how do we do stuff? And you know, so what, you know, my question I'm asking, so what does this all mean for you? And as many of you know, if you haven't met me in person at an AD conference meeting or at the convention, we talk a lot about, you know, there's a lot of things that are on an AD's checklist of to-dos that they didn't necessarily sign up for. It wasn't why you dreamed to be an AD, likely. Some of the new things we have to do, the ways we have to communicate, and where we got to have social media presence and all these things. That wasn't necessarily the top of the list on why you want AD, but because of some of these changes, but what hasn't changed is we want to celebrate our kids. We want to promote our kids. We want to promote a program. We want to promote accomplishments. We want to build culture. And we want the fans in our community to be a part of that with us. And clearly, we got to find a way to meet them where they're at. So in so many ways, it's all digital. And so the question we have to ask ourselves in many cases, where is our digital brand? In digital, I mean, you know, so it's on a phone, it's on a screen, it's on a social media post somewhere, could be on a new digital screen on a billboard. But I'm thinking mostly when I'm talking about our digital brand, I'm talking about our online digital brand. and how are we managing that? Because it's also harder to manage than ever before with so many options and so many things that are all out and about there on the internet. So what I'm going to talk about today is a few pieces here, because these are the things that are primarily used today that we see. Twitter is a hub for activity. Facebook is also a hub, and I think actually an underutilized hub for activity because of the demographic that's on Facebook. Team communication is a big deal. Almost every team that I've talked to, every coach in the state I've talked to is using some form of electronic device and or a digital platform to communicate with their team and their parents. And there's a real opportunity here, I think, for athletic directors that we might not be thinking about. Obviously, there's websites, and everyone's got to have something because people are Googling and trying to find things. And as well, having a mobile app makes a big difference to the way people interact, but we know how it is. As users, our favorite things we like in the cracks of our life, or we get on our phone, whether it's sitting on the couch at night or it's in between things, or it's wondering what happened. I got out of practice. What's going on? You're checking your phone. You're not at your computer as much as you were, and clearly not grabbing the paper as much as we were, unfortunately, either. So these are the tools that are out there that your school likely has some representation on today. And so in one sense, you see all these social media stuff, these cool videos. And I know I love all the different social media posts highlighting seniors and cool creative things that schools are doing. That's all really fun and exciting. It's great. But is this exactly what you signed up for? Is this what we thought it would all be? And is that your job description? Because it can be a full-time job description. I know a couple of you on this are really good at this and take a lot of pride and get your hands dirty in regards to creating breaks and doing things, but it's not super easy. And yeah, it is fun and exciting when it's done, but how's it sustainable? How are you going to continue to do this year after year? And more importantly, is what you're doing giving you an ability to fundraise or do something else with it? Because inevitably, if you're going to do a good job with this, you're going to build a following. And that's what the media has done for years. They build a following. Anything that builds a following has an opportunity for fundraising and sponsorship. And that's one of the things at Varsity Bound we think about all the time. Yeah, so that's my transition to the next part. So as everybody is on digital, how can we leverage that? Because before, if everyone was looking at the paper or watching something on TV or looking at a flyer, we knew we could hand that to them, but we didn't have them in our worlds. They weren't connected to you directly. They knew about you and they were informed. But now with all these new, whether it's Twitter followers, Facebook followers, people that are following you through the Varsity Bound app, whether it's people that are coming to your site all the time, you're connecting an audience here. And we just really believe that high school sports is going to keep growing that way, and it's going to give you a really interesting opportunity to leverage that as we go. I initially meant this to be a lot more interactive, so I do want to take note that I think Scott might help me out here if there's any questions you have, or any notes you want to take and ask afterwards. We should have some time for some question and answer here. I was intending to make this much more interactive, but I've tried some interactive stuff with Zoom, and it's a challenge. So I'm going to keep going through the general flow of this, and we'll be able to interact at the end here. But yeah, feel free to throw a chat in there at Scott, and he'll help manage that with me. Yeah, again, for those that don't know me, I've been involved in high school sports from an athlete, and then involved in my own community and development. I live in Ames and very involved with the Ames High program. And I was honored last year. A number of ADs and a couple other coaches across Iowa nominated myself for 40 Under 40 through Coach AD magazine, which was really nice. And they did that not because of me. I was one of our guys that was under 40, but it was our team as a whole. And seeing how we're working toward building a digital platform to help schools all over the country, starting here in Iowa, through the things we're doing. So again, this is my life. This is what I do. And before all this, I worked in a marketing agency for 10 years. So I helped build digital marketing campaigns, logo development, tagline development, website development, email campaigns. That's what I did for various industries all over the state of Iowa and the Midwest, out of a company based in Ames and Des Moines. But I love sports, and I love digital. So I got an opportunity to start my career in entrepreneurship with Turning Machine, which is a tournament software that a group of us sold to Sports Illustrated in 2016. And then I got a chance to work for Sports Illustrated for 2 years, which was an incredible experience. I'm an Iowa kid that grew up in the country. Going to Manhattan and sitting in an office in the Hudson River was something I never dreaming I was going to do. And I liked parts of it, but really it was just an interesting experience in education that I wanted to take back to how can I take these experiences and our team as a whole and give those back to sports in a different way. And that's why we started Varsity Bound, and we've been at that now 3 years. So my experience with involved with athletic directors has been primarily focused around the last 3 years of traveling around and discussing, but certainly been around sports my whole life from that perspective. So I'm going to go through a couple tips and ideas on how I think you guys can all pretty quickly leverage Twitter in an interesting way. Rethink about how your team is using communication tools to connect people, and think about your digital home. And I'll explain what that means and all how that can tie together, and keeping a mindset of, as I'm building these things, how's it helping me? Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but down the road, how is it building a way for me to make money for my program and get it back in for my coaches and my kids? So let's talk about Twitter. So Twitter, you go out on Twitter today and you try to follow. If you're not a very educated person, say you're a new parent, you got a freshman, you got a sophomore, you got middle school kids, and you're trying to figure out what in the world's going on at your high school. I'm telling you, I'm that person, and it's hard to do. I didn't know everything that was going on. I didn't have a kid in the program yet, so trying to figure out what was going on was hard. So especially, which one should I follow? And there's nobody from Ames or Ballard on here, but they're my two schools I'm picking on, because I'm a Ballard grad and I live in Ames, so I figure they can come hit me if they need to. But I go to search for Ames High, and Ames High's got gobs of Twitter handles, and in fact they have 2 or 3 football Twitter handles. They got a new coach, which is exciting, but that the coach started a new Twitter handle, which is great. But what about all the other football fans that now are on this one? How do we help move those over to a new one? And I know Ian's done a good job of starting a new Ames High Athletics Twitter handle, and has got a following there. But the question is, who should I follow? There's so many to follow. Should I follow them all? That's one thing we're going to address here. I'm suggesting we go all in, and I'll tell you what that means on one Twitter handle, and use Twitter to promote, not necessarily to communicate to your team. There's definitely a lot of Twitter handles I see out there that promote some things, and then they'll have very specific information for their team, or very detailed information for the parents of a team. And the Twitter's open to the whole world here, all your fans, and keeping them entertained and keeping them focused on what you want them to see, because it moves so fast. Keeping things that promote your kids is what I suggest as well. And then make it a sponsorship opportunity. I'm going to show you what I mean by that. But so here's a quick snapshot. If I Google Ames High Athletics, I get all sorts of different things over here on the left-hand side. I get from coaches to people to student sections, and it's great. It's a great way, and it's a great way for lots of different people in your school to be developing content, but it's hard to follow as a fan. And if I search in Twitter, yep, here's all the different handles that pop up right away. You can see here, I mean, Ames High's doing a decent job. I even, in my perfect world, all of these icons would be very similar looking. They would have basketball denoting them versus all these different looks to keep the brand consistency. But I'm not going to get that picky in this conversation today. So they're doing a pretty good job. Lots of different ones out there. And interesting enough, I just did a quick analysis today that here's their Twitter handles and their followings. They don't have 800. Their track program's got the highest following rate, I think. I don't even know if I have where's their athletics one here? Oh, yeah, 801. So their track program's got the biggest amount of followers. Certainly there's crossover here, but collectively, and this isn't even all of them, they got 4,600 followers, but none of which really have a big following. Nothing you could really leverage in a lot of other ways other than just basic communication. But wouldn't it be cool if you as an athletic department, you had a better voice to all of these people? Because you're capturing them one way or another through your teams, and your teams are part of your program. And even if it's on Twitter, it's still something that I really think, and I've experienced, you should be in control of. I'm a big fan of going all in on one account. And what I mean by that is Glenwood, Ballard, and actually Southeast Polk have done a really good job of driving their fans to one clear Twitter handle. And I like their handles. BHS Bombers, Glenwood Rams, Southeast Polk Rams. No offense to those ADs out there that their primary account they tweet to has their name in it or AD in it. But as a fan, I care who the AD is in my town. I do. But as a pure fan, I like these ideas of having the school and the mascot. I don't know who the AD is, and I want to be hearing from the school as a whole. So having a Twitter brand and a look that represents a broad range versus and it is interesting. There are some schools out there for sure. Their Twitter handle is their coach, is their AD's name, and I always get nervous about that, wondering if an AD ever moves on to another job or doesn't do that, where do all those followers go? They're actually connected to that AD's personal account, and it's really hard to move them to another account. I mean, good luck telling Twitter and trying to get their support group to help move a bunch of followers to another handle. So having a clear branded Twitter profile that you're all in on is helpful. And when I say all in, I love the idea when I see Glenwood or Ballard or Southeast Polk, they're retweeting all the other sports. So they're really leveraging the other sports that are putting out content at a cross country meet or a track meet or a golf meet, where it's hard for you to be at. Clearly, you can't be at all these things, but retweeting that in through that one Twitter handle is very powerful and very easy as a parent to follow and get a good snapshot of what's going on. Because in reality, when we look at what the newspaper is today, it is Twitter in so many ways. That Twitter feed is so powerful, and you can retweet things from that one account and get everyone on one spot. And you can build an interesting following here. Now, I'm going to show some examples of how Glenwood and Ballard and Southeast Polk have all tried to leverage their Twitter following to make money for their programs. And like I said, let's keep Twitter to promoting, good images of, hey, we made it to state, or an upcoming game that's happening, or, it's meet day, or videos of introducing a new coach. Those are great things to do. And like I said, that's what people want. And that's what people are going to continue to follow. If they get a bunch of messages about practice is canceled and this is canceled, and, big cancellations for games, that makes sense. But the details, people will unfollow or not pay as much attention to that. But having things like this are huge. Again, I'm not here today to necessarily solve how you're going to produce all this content, but I am saying that if you are producing that content, or if a coach is producing that content, getting it funneled through that one account can be a really powerful way to connect to your fans. And then fundraising opportunities. If you've seen these things, so Glenwood has done a good job where they have a real estate agent that sponsors their Twitter stuff. So, having a hard time finding someone to post stuff on Twitter, well, having some sponsors and paying somebody, or having I know there's a lot of classes now, and Glenwood does that as well, where kids are helping produce some of these things. These tools are even easier for a lot of high school kids to be able to use. So being able to leverage that following, make money for the program, or help produce higher level graphics and interesting things for your kids. Because these are the kinds of things, that kids are going to remember. I've got those newspaper clippings that are turning all yellow now, but this is the scrapbook. These are the type of things that are going to be a scrapbook for this next generation of kids. And having nice looking stuff is hard to get. It's hard to find all the time to do it all. But if you can find a way to make money doing it, you can, we've seen a lot of success with people doing that across the state. We know Jean does a great job at the girls union, and she leverages the heck out of Twitter. She's smart. She's on top of that, and they're going to continue to do that, promoting their sponsors through there. And again, they're sitting on top of the state. But I believe that your brand in your community is so powerful. Getting them on Twitter and getting them here gives you a great job to leverage that. And actually, with Varsity Band, we're doing this very same thing. We can actually have custom sponsors for your live scoring tweets and your scoring tweets. That's something we're going to have, and we can talk about that later for this coming fall for football. And cross our fingers, football and volleyball season, we have a new way for you to sell sponsorship inside of your live scoring stuff that happens automatically. So Twitter's a powerful tool. Getting them all into one spot where they are able to follow, building one audience, and then leveraging that to produce some sponsorship is a really, really powerful thing that we're seeing, and we highly suggest. And I think that the clear steps going forward here, like I said, is try to figure out how to get that one-stop shop and drive everyone to it, and retweet a lot of your other schools' information through there. Let me talk a little bit about team communication. I go out and ask about every AD and coach I can find is, what do you use to communicate to your team? And there's various things that are going on. I've heard text message, email, group me, remind, Snapchat group messages, all sorts of things. Some things I've never heard of. There's a lot of one-off team apps out there. And a lot of times those coaches are just doing whatever they can. They got to find something. And, I don't know if they're looking to their ADs for advice. Some are, some aren't. But I'm telling you, what's happening is every coach is connecting to every parent and every kid directly through a mobile device. And if you're not doing that at your school in a great way, I really think, and you're not managing it, you're really missing out. And I'm going to tell you why, and some ideas around how to fix that. So there's so many options, and it's time consuming for coaches to do this. They got to enter their schedule in, and again, there's another app they got to enter their schedule in, or enter the information in to get connected. And one of the big things I heard, I was actually on with Tom Wilson, and he uses Team App at Dowling. And what they're doing is every year, he's obviously the football coach. He goes in and he deletes all the senior parents and all the senior kids out of the app because they don't want communication anymore. And I was like, boy, you're deleting direct communication with former football players and former football parents. I'm thinking you might want to email them for something again someday. And we're pulling them out of the app and putting them into a database and saving them for a rainy day when we might want to raise some money or do something. But as we all know, jobs as an AD that's not a reality to be consistent on some of those things. It's hard to do. So I really feel like we're losing a lot of connection with alumni by using all these different team communications. And again, make it a fundraising opportunity. Get people on one place where they can do that. And so again, there's so many options. We have text messaging groups, which I don't know about you, they drive me nuts. Because, for example, if you got a wide variety of professionals that are parents and this and they're, I particularly, I have one I think about who's a surgeon that's on one of my kids' teams, and I use text message, and I'm like, I don't need this guy getting text messages while he's in a surgery or after surgery or why he's doing stuff at home with it. I want him to focus on his job, and he just needs to know what he needs to know. And so a lot of times these group messages get going on and on because people are talking back and forth with groups of 20 people. Well, it's not a good use of time. It's knowing, and it's not what we want, how we want to engage with it. And again, you have no view of how people are interacting. Then that's their personal phone to another personal phone. And again, who knows what's all going on behind the scenes there. We got email. Email works. It's very functional. I get this is coaches emailing me about my kids' stuff right now. We read it. Parents read it. But kids, I don't know about you, but kids don't look at email. I can't get my son to look at an email. And they just don't do it. They want it on their phones. They want it on in a mobile way, a push notification, the text. And so there are solutions for that. Remind and GroupMe are two popular ones. That Remind, I know, is used inside of the school a lot. And GroupMe is an option too. Is an app that provides some of these things. And they're good. But again, if everybody across your school is using, so if my son's on the football team and they're using text message, and then he goes out for basketball and they use email, and then he goes out for track and they use Remind, and he goes out for baseball, they use GroupMe. Now as a parent, I've had 4 different things I'm on, and I got contact information for 4 different places. We've had coaches that had to enter this stuff in for the same kids over and over again. I really think there's a better solution. And again, I'm not here to describe it all today, but with Varsity Bound, we actually have a new communication tool we call Notify that every one of your coaches for all of your sports can use, that unifies all that communication and allows them to offer one app for your whole school to be able to, through the Varsity Bound app, to view all that information, and connects all of those people then to you, which gives you oversight and gives you more power to know who your coaches are connected to. Because again, if we are connected to those kids and those families when we need to do a fundraiser, whether it's a sponsorship banner, or it's just we're looking for people to donate $20 so that we can go on a trip, or so we can get new batting helmets. Having a better connection to those people is going to be really key, not just now, but down the road. And that's something that we're doing. We really see that this is an interesting opportunity for ADs and get away from this fragmented way of communicating. But the idea, regardless, my advice is pick one thing and have everybody use the same thing, so you can build some sort of routine on how you make sure you hold on to those contacts. Because this is something actually Scott and I just talked about this last week. Keeping your alumni and close to you for future references is important, and that's something that I think can happen. And again, coaches, every coach has parent meeting. Seems like a very common thing, and they have one slide that says, all right, sign up for team communication. And then again, every time they go to a new sport, they say sign up for team communication. And there's a real fatigue both for coaches logging into multiple systems and parents having multiple accounts in multiple systems. So finding a way again for one place for them to do that is I think it's just a really good idea. Instead of all these fragmented things, save time for the coaches and gives you a more unified way to communicate. And then losing alumni. I mean, we all wish we were seeing things like this where we're having our senior nights. Unfortunately, we're not, and it's mostly on Twitter. But we know what this scene's like when we're seeing our kids out on the court or on the field in their last time, and these parents are invested in the athletic program, in their kid, and some of them are falling off the scene. We don't want to lose those. We don't want those contacts to be deleted. As I mentioned, a lot of coaches I'm finding don't want the parents don't want to keep being on the softball messaging anymore when their kids isn't at softball. But that doesn't mean they don't want communicated from you and to be connected to what's going on. And we think both inside of the Varsity Bound app, we have a great way of handling that today, of keeping your alumni and connected with your school, and going to give you abilities to fundraise off of those things. And because just to jump in just real quick here, inside of Varsity Bound, we have the last 10 years of athletes for all of your schools in Iowa. So right now, this is an example of the student database part under Ballard, and there's 258 current student athletes. Well, if I click show alumni, then it actually shows me over 1,000 kids that are involved in here. Now today, we don't have contact information on every one of those kids, but what if you did? And what if every year, every one of those kids and every one of those parents, you had their information, and now you as an AD through Varsity Bound in this case can actually message all of those people through the system. And it's all done through a common practice that everyone's doing, is coaches communicating to the teams. So again, it's a real interesting opportunity that's out there, I think, for all ADs, again, unifying team communication in one spot And either using Varsity Bound like this is possible, but if anything, I would make sure using that one tool, you're just pulling all that data of all those different parents and all those different kids in one spot. So that when you're ready to do some fundraising or bringing them back for a homecoming or what it might be, you have their information and it isn't lost. Too many people are getting lost because of all the different team communication methods that are out there today. And then your digital home. So when I say digital home, I mean website, I mean mobile apps, I mean anywhere that people are reoccurring or coming back over and over again. And how is that being managed today? Again, very differently across everything that we're seeing. You know, one of the things you got to ask yourself when you're thinking about where's your digital home, is it mobile friendly? Is it an app, or is the website I have mobile friendly enough? Because people aren't going to websites. They just aren't as much on their computers and sitting at home and digesting this information. They're doing it on the go. You know, is it easy to find? Do I have to Google it and click around? You know, like that AIMS site I showed you as an example is embedded in the district site. I'm just telling you, no one really wants to click around a district site for very long to figure out what a schedule for their kid's game is. That's not the ideal way. Is it sticky? Sticky meaning, is it something they want to come back to all of the time, over and over again, and can rely on that information? And does it represent the brand well for your school? Are you happy with how your digital, your website and your mobile represents your school and your kids? And again, is there a fundraising opportunity here? And my argument is absolutely there is. So mobile friendly. So there's some good examples. This is my example here of, you go try to find IHSADA stuff. This is an embedded Google Calendar inside of the district site, like 8 menu items down. It's not easy to find over and over again. I mean, good luck sending this to my grandma and having him come to one of my son Jack's games. It's going to be really, really challenging for me to do that. And then there are some good tools out there. VNN has some neat websites. This is a Presto site that Ballard uses. This is better. It gets us in the right ballpark to some degree, but it takes a Herculean effort to update this thing, because you got to hand key everything in here. You got to make sure all this is up to date. And then if it is your source and it's not up to date, well, that's a real challenge. So there's some real interesting things going on in the website, and these are both mobile view screens of that, but it's got to be more mobile friendly, because that's where people are looking at it. It's clear. We look at the Quick Stats Iowa data. So that's obviously one of the sites we support. And it's really, it is so much mobile now, and that site is not mobile friendly, which is something we're actually working on today as a team. But yeah, we can see where Iowa sports fans are at and what kind of devices they have. And it is heavy mobile at this stage. Yeah. Is it easy to find? If you Google things, I'm Googling Glenwood High School over here, and, I'm trying to find something really quick that's going to get me there. And, anytime I click on these, or I look at basketball, look for a basketball schedule, it's not real clear where I'm going to find this with a quick Google search either. And especially everyone, I'm sure, loves this when Max Preps comes up, when, nobody in the state really uses Max Preps, and that's the top result. Really annoying. So, it's just, is it easy to find? Can I tell someone where to go and find it easily every single time? That's another thing we ask ourselves and think about, and it's not easy to do today. And is it sticky? And our school is obviously something that a lot of people use across the state, and you can find a schedule, very practical, very good, and I'm going to come back here, but there's no scores. I can't click around and find a whole lot more. Some people do post scores here, but very few schools I find post scores into our school here. This is back in February. It's got some real good functional stuff here, but again, is it the prettiest thing? Is it the most mobile friendly thing? Is it giving me a lot of information? Or my parents want to come back here all the time to figure out what's going on? I'm hearing mostly no to that. And is that something that, do we all sit here and think this is something I can make money on fundraising? Would I have sponsors that would want to be on this page, is a question that we ask. And, we don't get a lot. I know our school has some advertising they have on there. I'm not sure how that all works, but this is not necessarily a destination where we want to really represent sponsors well either. And so, and does it represent your brand well? So this is Ames High. So if Ames High goes here to their district site or here, is it the worst thing ever? No, but I got a Google embedded thing over here. It's not, it looks like kind of a boring school thing, but our athletic program shouldn't be boring school things. They should be exciting. They should be more vibrant than this. It should celebrate a kid. I don't even see a picture of a kid anywhere on this. It's doesn't represent what I believe high school sports should be doing. And I'm sure what you wish you could be doing as an AD. So, so what are the solutions today? Well, again, Varsity Bound's one of those. There's others. Presto, VNN have some interesting ways. You got to manage a lot of things, but just a snapshot of what we're doing here. A lot of you have seen it. This is Varsity Bound apps. This is Ames High. And then this is what we do. So we're design. These are all different screens of all the different mobile devices, from Androids to iPads to webs to computer monitors, and how your brand and your stuff looks. This is actually some brand new stuff I haven't seen. We have some new websites that are out now for your school and your events. And yeah, again, it's just one screen here, but it's a lot more vibrant than what we're looking at here. We're getting some imagery in here. We're getting strong branding. We're getting logos of schools. We have scores here. As many of you know, through Varsity Bound, you're getting into box scores. You're getting all sorts of great stuff that your coaches are doing. So is your digital home representing what you believe your program should be looked as? And we're real big fans of thinking about some of those options. So whether it's Presto or VNN and things like that, or it's Varsity Bound, definitely moving to a solution that has a much better, more modern design, a more modern framework for the technology side, meaning that it can handle all of this. It can fit in every type of device so that you're looking good to your fans. And then finally, why not? Gosh darn, if you have a beautiful place and you're consistent on where to go, why wouldn't you be able to get sponsors here? We get sponsors on our scoreboards. We get PA people to read it at games. We get things in our printed programs, and that's the things we sell. But if everybody is on their phones and on their computers and they have a digital presence, why wouldn't they want to be there? And this is just a quick story. Story County Medical has been a great supporter of Nevada, and they've done everything under the sun to support Nevada any different way, any different medium, whether it was on the wall of the gym or on a scoreboard or help print a program. And when Nevada and we talked to them, they said, yes, this is what I want. This is what I've always wanted as a business, because now I can be represented on a digital place where people are going and interacting with. And this is just much better for my business, actually, from an interaction standpoint. And it's just much, I just know where people are at. When the gym lights are closed, my sign doesn't do much. When it's not football season or track season, and I don't have people out there and filling the stands on a cold night, I'm not getting seen. But I'm getting seen 24/7 through, this is also, these sponsorship opportunities are available through mobile and through the web. So again, taking care of your digital presence, not just to have a pretty place or not just have a solid place, but a place where you're consistently driving people to a place so that sponsors' value is high, and you can again put this money back into your program. Because again, we're not going to the newspaper anymore. There isn't a great hub, and that business model is in trouble for media. But you can take and fill that void in so many ways and take advantage of that for your own program. And again, frankly, put some of that money back into helping you produce nice things like this as well. So that wraps up what I wanted to discuss here today. I'll kick it back here to Scott here in a moment. But as a whole, as a person in this industry that's thinking about you guys every day, what I'm working to do is, and our team is working to do, is how can we pull in your fans, your athletes, your parents into a really, really useful tool that's really, really helpful for them to find out what they need and create new fundraising opportunities in this new landscape that we have, because this is what's driving a lot. And we've all seen the schools that are successful around the country are doing really great things. And that's because they're on this trend. They see that they need to be working towards this way. It's, the way college marketing has progressed over the years, how Iowa State looks compared to what it looks like when I was a kid. And we see ourselves positioned to help you do that for your high school really easily. So these sites and the apps, that everything we do is all populated by things that the coaches are doing anyway, because a part of the state mandate. So these are just opportunities for you to leverage that. And as we look to the 2021 school year, as new ways for you to level up your sponsorship opportunities. So I'm hoping I give you a few tips, hope few things to think of around getting Twitter into one place and going all in there, retweeting your other coaches and driving a big following there. Again, looking at your team apps, ask your coaches what you're using. And if you can get to one so that you can make sure all the contact information is coming to one place so you can continue to leverage that ongoing. And then think about your digital presence. Is it mobile friendly? Is it something people want to come back to? Is it represent my brand well? Because again, if you get people coming back to your brand and to your website, again, now you're going to have interesting opportunities to fundraise against those properties. And I'm sure that no one signed up to be an AD to be in the media world, but we are. I mean, that's the fact that you are in the media world. You have a unique opportunity now to make money off of digital properties that you never had before. And Varsity Bound is here to help guide you through that process. And our biggest goal is, if we can help schools make more money and put stuff more back into high school sports and the high school programs, everybody is really winning. So I thank you. Oh, I have a couple more slides here. Oh yeah, okay.
Hey, Sam, we have a question here for you
All right, sounds great.
from Angela Radloff. How
Yeah.
do you put sponsorship info in the page?
Yeah, so this is something I can definitely talk to you more outside of this call, but we have a tool now that you can upload sponsorship banners in the app and on the web. This is brand new stuff. So this is what I was going to be talking to a lot of you about at the AD convention, and we're going to do enough of calls about in your school here. You'll see communication from us here in May about these opportunities. But yeah, it's all you have the ability to load that now through the back end, and it's pretty simple and pretty straightforward. And we actually also have a service where if you have a sponsor and you want us to build a really simple digital ad, we can do that as well. And again, I can talk to you about some of the details on that, but it's all available right in the back end of Varsity Bound today for you to load and display right away. Good question.
All right. Do we have any other questions for Sam before we let him go here? All right. Well, thank you all for attending today. We'll send out some further information on upcoming workshops. But I want to thank you guys for being on with us. Have a great day.
Scott,
Yes.
I just wanted to mention to